Adriana vineyard, the Catena Adriana vineyard, and this is where you get white bones.
Exactly.
Why do you call it white bones?
Well, you know, I explained you before the limestone rocks that we have in the mountains that were formed by the shell of the animals living in the ocean before the Andes were elevated. So, in honor to these animals, the shells, so we call the wines white bones.
So this would be the kind of old maritime kind of shells,
Exactly.
which create a kind of like a graveyard of.
Exactly. So basically, in this small parcel where we take the fruit for white bones, we have a layer of sand that was deposited more recently by the wind, so it's mostly aeolic. And then we have the limestone. This is the limestone, which is you see it's kind of very light in color, like white. Has a lot of calcium carbonate, basically, deposited over sand and some stones. And this is what gives the special character to white bones Chardonnay.
Super.
So you will taste now the very special flavor, the minerality, and the nice acidity delivered by this microclimate in this specific type of soil.
Well, should we try the wine?
Of course.
And so when was it that Catena separated these different lots? Is this a long process to try and discover the soil types?
Yes, it was a long process. We started around 2003, and it was with Laura Catena and Alejandro Vigil. You see the hills on the other side. We used to climb those hills, and from the top you see the different colors in the vineyard. You know, some parts more green, some light green, and some yellow parts. And we started to taste the grapes, and they taste different. And then we started to make different wines from every parcel, like micro-vinification over the years. And we found differences that we think are interesting to show. And it's where we found white bones in this particular limestone soil, and as you will see then, white stones.
And so how would you, I mean, what is it that Chardonnay is obviously a very expressive variety, and it shows very well the different soil types.
Yes.
Doesn't it? How would you describe Chardonnay grown on this soil?
I will describe it, I mean, it's more than this soil, I would say this terroir, because it's not, you can have the same soil, but in the east, let's say 700 meters of elevation, and will be completely different wine compared to this one. We are at 1,500 meters of elevation, 5,000 feet, and it's a high mountain climate, so very cool. The grapes keep the acidity high, and there is an expression coming from this specific microclimate in combination with this soil. So into this microclimate, this soil we found that deliver some flower notes like lavender.
Lavender, yeah.
And very nice acidity, very fresh, very refreshing, the wine. You can age. I told you we started in 2003, but we didn't release the wine until 2009. 2009 was the first vintage. We were doing research and be sure that there is a correlation between the site and the wine. So 09 was the first vintage, and the evolution of the wine is amazing. So I would say minerality, lavender, and I think a great age potential.
It's amazing because here at the heights that we are, you've got a very different, much cooler climate to other Chardonnays that we might try in lower Mendoza. You were saying that this normally is at the Winkler index. At what level?
This is, in average, is in region 2. This particular year is in region 1, like Burgundy or Champagne. So every year is between 1 and 2. In average, is region 2, like let's say Côte Rôtie or Barolo or Bordeaux. So usually it's in region 2, but some years, like this one, is region 1. So very, very, in terms of heat and energy, it's very cool region.
Super, fantastic. It's delicious. And we're going to now walk to the vineyard and try your white stones.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same block, but in a different part, and I will explain you what happened there with the first layer and second layer, that you will not see them there. So I will explain what happened.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
So we've hopped, skipped and jumped to a couple, not too far. How far are we from the Bones
I
vineyard?
would say 80 meters.
80 metres.
Yeah.
And here we've got a completely different soil type, which is where you find your white stones.
Exactly.
It's kind of obvious why you've called it white stones.
Uh-huh.
But can you tell me a bit where these stones come from and why they're important for the character of the wine?
So here, this is a riverbed. So there was running water maybe a couple of thousand years ago, and this water removed the most superficial layers of the soil. So the sand and the limestone were removed, and we found just the stones and rocks. So here you can see many stones and rocks that are round because it's alluvial, right? And they are covered with limestone. It's the reason they look white.
Okay.
In this soil, 95% of the volume are stones and rocks that cannot be explored by the roots. So just 5% can be explored, and the plants can take water and nutrients just from 5% of the soil. So it's a very stressful condition for the plants, and there is a big difficulty to find to develop the vigor and the yield in the vines. So usually it's a low vigor, low yield, small berries in all this area. So you can see here the roots, very, they have to turn around every stone, every row.
They're very twisted. I mean, they're
Exactly.
growing kind of out, down, around.
Exactly, around the stones. And it's this is the situation and the reality they face in this particular place. So and we make a wine from this specific parcel called White Stones, Argena Vineyard White Stones Chardonnay. It's one of our vinos de parcela. And
so this is another microvinification
exactly
from this specific soil type.
Exactly.
We're talking about the same kind of terroir, really, if we're going to put it in context.
Yeah.
But the only difference between this bit and that bit is the
soil.
stones and the soil.
The soil. The microclimate is the same. The only difference is the soil. We found also a small effect in the temperature, because if you see around this place is all covered with stones.
Yeah, and
so
very white stones.
Yeah, they get heated during the day, and they deliver a little temperature to the air. They heat a little bit the air during the day.
And do you find that the white, does that give more luminosity to underneath the vines
also,
as well?
Yes. So here you will find a wine, you will find the same minerality, but maybe it's losing the flavor of flowers, like lavender that you tasted. Instead of that, you will find a wine that is a little bit bigger in the mouth, like the acidity is there, the minerality is there, but it's just that it's a little bit wider in your mouth. More like Merceau, like that style of Chardonnay.
It's a bit more voluptuous.
Exactly. We think that it's the heat from the stones in the surface that get a little bit more ripeness to the fruit.
Super. And so this, I mean, it's really, if you're talking about 5% of vineyards in the area that can actually reach enough water and get far enough down, this must be quite rare in the Uco Valley, or is it something that we can find in different areas as well?
You can find this type of soil in different areas because there are another creeks, another riverbeds in this alluvial cone, but you cannot find the combination of altitude and this type of soil. I mean, this is the only place, I would say, in the world that combine this particular soil and this microclimate.
Super. And it's great to be able to taste it in these wines and show you a little bit about about this part of Adriana and this part of Guaycaya.
Yeah, and also I think it's good for Argentina that we can show to the world that a different face of Chardonnay. I mean, it's a mountain climate, high elevation, cool climate. With this particular soil, we are delivering a style of Chardonnay that people, the consumers, are appreciating in a high level.
Super. And do you think there's a lot of potential for Chardonnay and other white varieties here?
Yes, yes.
And something that we're going to see a bit more in the future from
Past,
Argentina?
I would say 10, 15 years ago, we didn't imagine that we could be producing this style of Chardonnay. You know? And maybe because the vineyard was younger. This was planted in 1996. So I think now it's taking the maturity in the vineyard to express more and explore more with this over these years. The roots explore more the volume of the soil, and now they are really interacting with all the resources, you know, temperature, sunlight, and soil. I think sometimes take time. I mean, it's not you cannot achieve the potential of the place in 1, 2, 3 years. Sometimes need time. It's wine. It's not Coca-Cola.
Certainly not. And when were these planted?
This was planted in 1996.
Fantastic. So we're already in that stage where we're producing really great wine, and it's exciting to think about 10 years, 20 years more as well.
Yeah, and sometimes I think all the mistakes we are making now, and maybe in 10, 15 years more, we will say, oh, remember when we were, you know, and it's amazing. I think it's a good moment to be in Argentina, trying to produce a higher quality.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sharing. Cheers.
You're welcome.